today we'll be learning about Python function. We are learning over here, we are understanding over here. We'll not be able to actually understand it till we do not implement it. So do the programming, implement the concepts, then you will be able to understand about the concepts what you have learned today. So these are the topics that you'll be will be covering today in our lecture today. So first we start with the introduction to functions in Python. In Python, a function is a group of related statements to perform a specific task. So we all have seen, we have seen functions in various programming languages, and here also it is the same one, right? So that's why what is it? It is a group of related statements. Why it is related statements? Because the statements whatever we are written under that function definition, they are all related with each other, they are not independent. Fine. And they are written, the related statements are written for performing a special task, a specific task. Fine. So functions are a convenient way to divide your code into useful blocks. What do you mean by that? So if you are not using functions, it means you are writing the code, your programming code in one length. So it will be so lengthy, and the code snippets, sometimes some are the code snippets that are performing the same task, and you will be writing that code again and again. If you need to do that work in your program again and again. So it means the repetition of your code will be there, and the code will become lengthy, and moreover it will not be readable. So if you are modifying that code snippet, right, so it means you need to change that code snippet number of times wherever it is coming in the code. But the benefit of function is, so if we have separated out that common code that you need to call again and again for performing some particular task, so then what you need to do is you have to modify at one place, and it will be reflected everywhere where you are calling it. So it is a convenient way to divide your code into useful, divide your code into useful blocks, then allowing us to order our code, right, and then make it readable. So then your code will become more readable because it will be into smaller parts, so you can reuse it. Once you have written it, you can use it by just calling the name of the function. So it means you are reusing the code again and again once you have written it. And moreover, it is saving the time as well. Fine. So otherwise, you are writing the same code again and again. Also, the functions are a key way to define interfaces so programmers can share their code. Fine. Functions help break our program into smaller and modular chunks. So we have already discussed that if you are using the functions in your program, your lengthy program will be broken into small pieces. So then it will be, we are dividing the program into smaller and modular chunks. As our program grows larger and larger, functions make it more organized and manageable. So this is another advantage, that your code will be more organized and more manageable also. So you can read one function code snippet, find out the error, and you can resolve it. You can modify it rather than you have to go through the whole code and then find out the problem. Furthermore, it avoids repetition, we have already seen that there will be no repetition if you are using functions, and thus if there is less repetition and you are using the functions, then you can make the code reusable. So this is very big advantage of functions. So then what are the type of functions that are supported by the Python? So they are two type of functions. First we can see these are the built-in functions, another we have user defined functions. What is built-in functions? Built-in functions means that the functions that are already given to us in layman language, if I talk, then we can say that the functions that are already given by the Python to us, and we have to just cram the names of those functions, and wherever we require we are just calling them with the name. And you can see the very first built-in function example what we have taken, print. So since we have started learning about Python, we are using this function and it is so convenient for us, and we are not aware how the print function is working behind, but we know that it is displaying the output on the screen. Fine. So just we are calling the print function, and we need to know what is the syntax, what are the arguments, and how we need to pass the arguments inside this parenthesis, how to call it. But we did not bother about so how it has been written, what is the code that has been written for print function. So it is already built-in function by the Python for some specific task. What is that task? To display the output onto the screen. Then length, we have already seen length number of times. Length of the list, length of the tuple, length of the dictionary, and so on. Str, absolute, sum. So we have already seen that. So these are the built-in functions, the functions that are built into the Python. Fine. Then is user-defined functions. As we can say that everything is not everything cannot be known to a programmer, right? So Python has also been developed by programmer. So Python programmer does not know what task you want to do. So there can be some specific task, specific program, specific projects you want to develop, and corresponding to that you need your own functions to be defined. They can be of particular use for your project, right? It means they are defined by the users, they are not built-in functions by the Python. So now the functions defined by the user themselves, they are the user defined functions. Then let's discuss about built-in functions. We have already seen number of built-in functions, but here we will be looking at in more detail some of the functions. You can see the list of built-in functions we have listed down over here, in which I will be just letting you know about some that you have already seen, right? So absolute you have all seen, all I think in almost all the data structures we have seen, data types we have seen, in which if you talk about list, if you talk about tuple, if you talk about dictionary, so we have seen all, even any we have seen, bool we have already seen for boolean, for compare we have seen this, dict we have seen, right? Even div mode we have seen, enumerate we have seen, then we have seen float, right? Frozen set recently we have seen, then we have seen we can say over here length, right? List, right? And max, min, then we have seen over here par function, right? So here power we have seen, print we have seen, range we have seen, right? Next we reversed we have seen, round we have seen, set we have seen, slice, sorted, then str, sum, tuple, type. These we have already discussed. Fine. So these are all built-in functions by the Python, that we need not to bother that how they have been programmed, but we need to understand that how can we use it, how can we call it, how can we pass the arguments in it so that our purpose is solved. So absolute, we have already seen, absolute is one of the most popular Python built-in functions which returns the absolute value of a number. A negative values absolute is that value is positive. So absolute minus 7 we have seen over here, it is giving us 7. So it is giving the positive value. ASCII, it is important Python built-in function that returns a printable representation of a Python object, right? So if you are passing, if you are, how to use it, you are using ASCII, then you are passing some like Romanian character it has taken, so it is giving you the Unicode of that, right? Then bin converts the integer to a binary string. So this is the integer that has been passed, and this is the function, and this is the binary it is returning to us. So here you can see we cannot apply it on floats though. Then chr, it returns the character in Python for an ASCII value. So if you are passing this 65 to it, it is returning you this A. So corresponding to, we know, corresponding to 65 we have A character. Compile. So what is this compile? Compile returns a Python code object. Suppose sometimes you need to write some dynamic codes, right? So dynamic code means whenever you are using, suppose, let's take an example of for loop. In for loop, when you are iterating through for loop, you are um, concatenating all the strings together to make a sentence, and that sentence basically becomes your Python code, right? Or let's take one more example. Sometimes dynamic search is required, right? So dynamic search. So what is dynamic search? Dynamic search means like sometimes you have seen that there is a big advanced search option given to you, right? And in which you have been given the options of number of options that you can choose any, right? So whatever you have the information, you are just putting the information over here, wherever you have the information, and then you press search. What it will do, it will generate dynamic search query, right? And then the program will execute. So if you have given only this option, and accordingly this dynamic search query will be generated. If you have given two options, so these two will be combined and their search query will be generated. If you have option 3, so 3 will be combined, 4 will be combined, 5 will be combined, 6 will be combined. So in this way dynamically your search query will be generated. Now, so you can see over here that some Python code in the form of string has been written over here. Now, what it is doing is, it is, so you can see it is converting a string code to an object code. So then it is compiling, right? So means that it is compiling your code and giving the output. Otherwise, it is a string. So this is a simple example I am giving you. So then you want to compile some string in the form of the Python code. So this is the way how you can do it. Then complex. So we have already seen that integer can be converted into complex. So it creates a complex number. Div mode. So this Python built-in function takes two parameters and returns the tuple. So it is returning as a tuple. So the tuple has been returned to you, in which the quotient is there and the remainder is there. So it returns the floor division and the modulus of two numbers. Then we are coming to the range in detailed way, and this is very important in your programming. The range function is an inbuilt function in Python, and it returns a range object, right? So what is the syntax of that range function? The range function in Python takes 1, 2, or 3 arguments, either 1 or 2 or 3 arguments. Let's look at the first a case in which we are passing one parameter to the range function. So here what you are doing is that for an argument n, the function returns integer values from 0 to n minus 1. Means that here if you have put stop, right? What do you mean by that? Where to stop? Starting from 0, where to stop, right? So if you have put 3, so it means this is a stopping point, right? This is a stopping point. So it means 0 to 3 minus 1, 0 to 2. So it has displayed 0, 1, 2. So list, it is generating the list, and then you have given the range. So it means the list has been generated picking the values from 0 to 2. And how you can do this? By using the range function over here. Let's see what happens if you provide a negative value to it. So it the fact is that it returned an empty set, tells us that range is internally coded to traverse to the right, and there is no integer from 0 to the right minus 3. So as minus 3 falls to the left of 0. So here you can see if you are providing minus 3 over here, so it will return empty list to you. Fine. Then if you are passing two parameters, so what are their meanings? So here you can say that starting point and stopping point. So you can see over here, this is the starting point, this is the stopping point. But here you can see that this 7 will be, when actually given, it will be n minus 1. It means 7 minus 1. So you can say over here that it is starting from 1, it is inclusive, right? So this is inclusive, and this is exclusive, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, both arguments are positive. So then if we try passing the argument where the first is greater than the second. So here you can say first we have given the start point, this is the stop point, so it will return you the empty string list. Then we cannot pass negative values. We can't pass negative argument to the range, but it is indeed possible to pass a negative value or two when you pass two or more arguments. So here you can see over here. So if you talk about this 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on, here minus 1, minus 2, minus 3, minus 4, and so on, right? So here the starting point is minus 7, minus 7, minus 6, minus 5, right? So we are starting from here and we are going in this way, right? So it is 3, so we will go up to 2. So it means minus 7 to up to positive 2 will be displayed. So 3 is excluded. This is exclusive, I will say, right? So in this way. So if you talk about minus 7 to minus 3, minus 7, minus 6, minus 5, minus 4. So this is exclusive, right? So then minus 3 to minus 7. Here it is empty because we need to go from where we are going, from left to right. So it will be empty. So as you can observe here that it returns empty list. The reason is minus 3 lies to the right of minus 7. We cannot go to this direction. We can go to this direction only. Now, how can we pass three parameters and what are their meanings? First is start, from where to start, right? Where to stop, and what is the step or internal. So here we can see, again we draw it, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Here -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6, -7, -8, -9, -10. So let's see now. So we are starting from 7 and going to up to 1 and with step of -2. So here we can start with 7, right? And then we are having the step of -2. 7 minus 2, 5. -2, 3. -2, 1. So 1 is exclusive. So we will be having 3, 5, and 7, 5, and 3. So here, after bragging about, you can't have second argument smaller than the first one. Now, we can see over here, there is one condition. You must specify a negative interval. So in the last slide, we have seen that we cannot have the start value bigger than the stop value. But here we have, and we are getting the result also. Here the condition is you can use it, but the interval should be negative, right? So here it is negative. So 7, 8 minus 1, so it will display 7 only. So then now take a look at more examples for 3 parameters. So if you take about this 1, 7, 1.5, so we cannot take it. It is floating point number. So it is not there. So error will be type error. Float object cannot be interpreted as integer. Next, we are moving towards user-defined functions in Python. We have already seen built-in functions and we have seen range in detailed way. Now we are moving towards user-defined functions in Python. Functions that we defined ourselves, defined by the user to do certain specific tasks are referred as user-defined functions. The way in which we define and call the functions in Python, it's our own choice. What we want the Python function to work and how can we call it? Do we need to pass one argument? Do we need to pass no arguments? Do we need to pass more than two arguments? So that is dependent upon us, what is our requirement and how we are defining for calling the functions. All the functions that we write on our own fall under user defined functions. Fine. So then advantages of user defined functions. User defined functions help to decompose a large program into small segments, which makes program easy to understand, maintain and debug. So it means if you are breaking your big program into smaller ones by using user defined functions, you can easily understand your large program, you can easily maintain your large program, and you can easily debug also. So first question is, how can you understand better? Because you are reading, okay, if you see, if you have a history book and you do not have the chapters over here, you have a single book over here for 250 pages, 200 pages, definitely you get bored and it has not been divided into parts, right? It is better to understand in parts. You'll be able to maintain well because now you know that this function is doing this particular task. Fine. And you have 5 or 10 or 20 or 50 lines to read for that function. So if there will be an issue, you want to update it, you can update it 50 lines only. Debugging is also easy because each function you are looking and you are debugging it rather than you are debugging the whole program of 1,000 lines of code in one go. If repeated code occurs in a program, functions can be used to include those codes and execute when needed by calling that function. So repetition will be removed. Programmers working on large projects can divide the workload by making different functions. So the modular approach can be there. Modules are always divided among the team members and then they are integrated together, right? So they are independently developing the modules, and when they are done, they are integrated and called in one large program. Then what is the syntax for the user defined functions? So here you can see we have a keyword def. So whenever you have to define user defined function, you are using the keyword def, right? And then you are writing the name of the function, right? This is your own choice, whatever you want to keep it. And then open parenthesis, close parenthesis, and in between the parameters, if they are to be passed, if there is no, so it will be blank, and here it will be column. So in syntax you have one part, second part, I'll say this is third part, this is your fourth part, this is your fifth part, and that is your sixth part. You need to take care of this. And here, after that, the body of your function starts, where you will be writing the body of your program, in which we have the two components over here. First is docstring. Basically, it will, if you are writing the docstring, you are writing the docstring in triple quotes, and in between you are writing the purpose of this function, basically. And whenever you are calling the docstring of this function name, it will let you know what is the purpose of this function, and whatever you have written over here in these in the form of docstring, it will display onto the screen. So we can see, if we look into it in another way, whenever you need to find the help of something, of some function, of some program, so you are displayed with the whole story of that program, right? So we can say that it has been written over here to explain you. So that is your code. Then you have number of statements to write, right? uh, Under this program, so you are writing all the statements in the body of this function, right? So again we are coming to the syntax of a function. Again, you have a keyword def, then you are writing the space, after space you have the name of the function, then you have the open parenthesis, you are writing if there are parameters or arguments to be passed, and then parenthesis to be closed, and then colon. After that, this is optional, docstring is optional, so if you want to write docstring, you will be writing in a particular way, and then you will be having the statements, whatever will be the part of the body of this function. So recap: keyword def, that marks the start of the function header. Function name, to be uniquely identify the function, right? So as you are mentioning the variables in your program, so they are unique, so function name will be unique. So function naming follows the same rules for writing identifiers in Python, like variables in Python. Then parameters, in other words, we can say them arguments through which we pass the values to a function. They are optional. There can be no arguments, there can be one argument, there can be two arguments, and so on. It depends upon your own specific task you want this function to do. Then a colon to mark the end of the function header. Fine. And after that, you have the colon optional documentation string, doc string, to describe what the function does, as we have already discussed. One or more valid Python statements that make up the function body. Statements must have the same indentation level. So I'll be coming over here in detail about the indentation level. So that is very important. We have already discussed in the very initial lectures of the Python as well about indentation. So indentation is very important and must. I'm not saying that advisable, but it is must. You cannot ignore it. You need to mention it. It is must. Then we have a optional return statement to return a value from the function. Then we are moving towards naming rules for the function identifier. So it is similar to the identifier or variables, right? We follow the same rules when naming a function as we do when naming a variable. It can begin with either the following: a capital A to capital Z, small a to small z, and underscore. The rest of it can contain either of the following, like capital A to capital Z, small a to small z, digits from 0 to 9, or underscore. A reserved word may not be chosen as an identifier. So it is good practice to name a function according to what it does. Means if you are calculating the marks of the class, then calculate underscore marks like this, right? So your function name must reflect its functionality, and it is advisable, right? Then we are moving towards how can you define the user defined functions. To create the function, def keyword is used in Python. Then you will be defining a unique name for the function, and in parentheses you are specifying your parameters, whatever your requirements is. And then the function block starts with colon symbol, and we can write the functions in Python in following three ways. First is def my function, right? First is we are starting with def, then we are keeping the name of the function, open close parenthesis, and then colon. And after that we can have a block of code, means the related statements, they will become the part of the body of the program. So here you are not passing any arguments, passing any parameters. So whenever you are calling it without parameters. So function may also receive parameters, right? So how can we do that? So here we can see that this is the keyword def. You are keeping the name of the function. Then again we have starting with parenthesis. Here you are passing the parameters. It can be 0, it can be 1, 2, or more. So here parenthesis close, then colon, and then you have a related set of statements. So functions may return a value to the caller using the keyword return. So you can use the keyword return over here for returning the expression or some value to the caller. So here we can see this is again keyword def, then name of the function. So here you can see we have kept the name as sum two numbers. So it is reflecting the functionality of the function, but although it is the name of the function, you are passing parameters to it. Then you have related set of statements, and here it is returning back to the caller some expression. So this is how you can write the return statement when you want the function to return back some value, some expression to the caller. If you don't yet know what to put in the function, then you should put the pass statement in its body. And if you leave its body empty, you will definitely get an error. So here you can see that we have passed pass over here, and it is called. Now you can reassign a function by defining it again. So examples, let's see. So this is the, we know this is comment, this is the keyword, right? This is the name of the function, open close parenthesis, colon, and there is only one statement under this function one, and in the body of this function, that is the print statement. I am learning Python function. Fine. So when you are calling this function, it is displaying I am learning Python function. So this is the output of the call of the function. So here we can see this is the function definition, this is the function call, and this is the function output. Then how can you call the user defined functions? Once we have defined a function, we can call it from another function or a program. To call a function, we simply type the name of the function with appropriate parameters, right? So this is the definition of your function, in which this is the keyword, this is the name of the function, some parameters to be passed, colon, and then the body of the function. When you are calling, you are using this name of the function to call. So this is the name of the function, and then this is the open closed parenthesis, and whatever the parameters you have to pass, you will be writing the parameters over here, and this is how the function is being called. It is important that we understand the indentation rule. So we have already seen that indentation is very important, right? So we have seen over here, yeah, so here we have seen that indentation at the same level, one or more valid statements will be there. Now statements must have the same indentation level, so you can see. So we will see what is indentation over here. Yeah, indentation. It is important that we understand the indentation rule to declare Python functions, and these rules are applicable to other elements of Python as well, like declaring conditions, loops, or variables, as we have already discussed about this. So Python follows a particular style of indentation to define the code. Since, why is it so? Because Python functions don't have any explicit begin or end like curly braces, as we have seen in many programming languages. Like if you talk about for, curly braces start, curly braces end, and colon. So these curly braces are not there in Python. So how the Python interpreter will come to know that which are the statements that are the part of the we can say function body? So that is the indentation. If they will be at the same level of indentation, it means that is the part of the function body. So to indicate start and stop for the function, so they have to rely on this indentation to find that which are the statements that are the part of the function body. So let's see over here. So here you can see we are defining one function, def function1, with no parameters and colon, and then we are having print statement. No doubt it is giving error. Why? Because here you can see def and print statement are at the same indentation level. So this is wrong, because print is the part of the body of the program, so it should go bit inside of that, right? So when you call it, it will give you error. So here you can see when print function is declared, right below the def function, it is right below without any indentation, it will show indentation error. So indentation error, expected an indented block, right? So then you are putting one indent over here. How can you put indent? Either you can just press tab, right? Or you can manually give 4 spaces by pressing the space bar 4 times, right? So when you leave indent space in front of the print, it will give you expected output. So then when you are calling this function, it is displaying I am learning Python function, right? So then the result will be as per your expectations. So if indentation is not there, so it will give you indentation error. So these are some of the examples for defining the functions. A simple Python function to check whether x is even or odd. So we are starting with defining the function, def, name of the function, parameters to be passed. So you have used if condition over here. So then you have used the indentation over here, right? So everything at the one level. Now, if you have put some condition, you are checking whether it is even. If x modulus 2 equals to 0, it is even. Now this print statement is part of this if. So now you are not putting if and print at the same. So it is again indented, because if this print is part of this if, then if this condition is false, else, so you have this print statement. So this print statement is not at the same level, so it is bit inside. So this if and else are indented at same level, and this is at this level. So you can see that we have the proper indentation over here. So even over 2, you are passing parameter 2 over here. So this x has been passed with value 2. So it is giving even. Even odd 3, you are passing this x equal to 3 over here. So it is giving odd. So it will execute this, otherwise it will execute this. So specify the parameter in the function if you want to perform the task with different parameters. Then if you want to delete user defined functions, how can you delete it? So till now we have seen how to delete a variable. So similarly, we can delete a function with a del keyword. So we have already seen that we can delete a variable, we can delete a list, we can delete a dict, we can delete tuple, right? We can delete a set. So number of things we have seen, and that del keyword is being used. So here also we have defined one function over here, def function 7. Then this is the body of the function, and you have executed it. It has returned you some result. Now you are deleting this function by using the keyword del, and you are writing the name of the function over here. So it is func7. You are trying to call this function again after deleting. So it is giving you the error that this does not exist. Then lifetime of variables. So lifetime of variables is very important concept, right? A variable's lifetime is the period of time for which it resides in the memory, right? Like ours lifetime, we can see what is our lifetime. So till we are alive. So similarly, till the variable is alive, it is its lifetime. So a variable's lifetime is the period of the time for which it resides in the memory, right? A variable that's declared inside the Python function. So here, let's see the example as well in parallel. So this is the name of the function. Here you have declared one variable counter, but this counter variable is part of this function only, right? You have initiated it with 0, you have incremented it 1, you are printing it all at the same indentation level. It means this is the body of function 1. Okay. So here this counter, it is a local variable for this func1 function, right? Means that this variable is only known, is well known to this function only, but any person who will call it from outside world, so it will not be recognized. So uh, a variable that's declared inside Python function is destroyed from the memory after the function stops executing. So when you have called the function, it goes to first statement, it initializes to 0. Fine. Then it means when you call it counter initially initiates to 0. Next, it moves to the next statement. Its value gets incremented to 1. Then you are printing the value of the counter, it becomes 1. Right, so it is displaying 1 over here. But as the function comes out of it, then wherever the counter was given space in the memory, it is taken back and it is not recognized. So the next time the function is called, it does not remember the previous value of that variable, right? So okay, let's take another very real life example. uh, in hotel, when a visitor came, he or she is given one room that is temporary till that person is staying over here. As and when that person checks out, when he will come back to that hotel, whatever room will be available over there, he or she will be allotted, might be same room or some another room, right? So it means that room is checked out, cleaned, and given to another person as and when he is checking out. So similarly, you can see over here that the counter is a guest in some hotel function. Till it was there, the room was there, memory allocation was there. As he checks out, function has been done processing, so the memory has been deallocated from there, right? So you can see over here that function does not print 2 another time. So here you can see this, if you are calling this func1 again, so it is again printing 1. The previous value that was the last stored in counter is not remembered by the memory. It is again starting it from 0 only, and it, as many times you are calling this func1 again and again, 100 times, lakh times, crore times, it will always giving you answer 1, because whenever you are calling it, it is always initializing it with 0 and then incrementing it 1 only. And as it has executed the third statement and it has come out of this function, so its value is gone. This is lifetime. So then scope of a variable. So there are two type of scope. One is local, another is global, right? A variable scope tell us where in the program it is visible. A variable may have a local scope as well as global scope. Local scope, a variable that's declared inside a function has a local scope. In other words, it is local to that function. Fine. So, okay, let's take the example of if you purchase some, suppose TV, LCD, LED, whatever, right? And some persons have the global warranty, some has the local warranty, right? So, what do you mean by that? Local warranty means the warranty is only within some region it is applicable. Global, wherever you go, you can avail that warranty. So here you can correlate over here that if there is a function and if that is a local variable, it is declared only inside the function. It is visible inside the function only. And if you try to find the value of that variable outside this function, you will get error, because that is not known person to outside world. Only this function func3 know x, and nobody knows uh, outside func3 function 3, right? So here you can see we have defined one function, right, with the name func3, where you have declared one variable x equal to 7. You are printing it. When you are calling it, it is giving the answer as 7, right? Now try to access this variable. If I try to access, suppose this is the so if I write over here print x at this indentation level, so it will give you error, right? What will be the error? Name error. Name x is not defined because it is not known to the outside world. So try to access this variable x outside the function. You will not be able to find any value, but you will get error. Name error will be name error. Name x is not defined. So this is local scope. That variable is having the local visibility inside the function only. Let's look at the global scope. When you declare a variable outside the Python function, so here this is the body of the function definition, and here you are declaring the variable outside the definition of this function. So this is global, right? Now and now you are calling it, right? So if you are calling it, it is able to access the value of y, that is 7, and it is displaying you. So however, you can't change its value from inside, right? A local scope, right? Here inside a function means here you cannot change the value. So to do so, you must declare its global inside the function. If you want to do it, so you will be doing like global y, then you are changing the value of y and you are displaying it. So when you try to execute it, so output will be given by 8. Now you display the value of y independently also, so you will be getting 8 because this value, this variable has been declared global by using the keyword global. So its value is visible globally even outside the function as well. Then arguments in the function. The argument is the value that is passed to the function when it is called. We have already seen that when open closed parentheses are there in the definition, so here you are passing the parameters, or other name is arguments, right? So it can be any number of arguments or no arguments depending upon your requirement. So argument is a value that is passed to the function when it is called. In other words, on the calling side, means this is the calling side, na? This is calling side. When you are calling side, it is an argument, and when you are talking about function side, it is a parameter. So here, when you are defining it, here we will be using the term as parameter, right? When you are here calling it, you will be using the term as argument. So this is the difference between parameter and argument. So a parameter is a variable listed inside the parenthesis in the function definition. So this is your function definition, and here you are listing the parameters, right? You can add as many arguments as you want, just separate them with a comma. So here you can just see that there is one argument, that is the f name, first name. When the function is called, we pass along the first name, which is used inside the function to print the full name. So here this is the keyword name of the function. You are passing one argument with a variable name f name. You are having one only statement over here, f name plus uh, something to be written over here. So my underscore function something name, my underscore function, again some name, again some name. Let's see one more example. So this is the keyword name of the function. We have passed two parameters over here, and you are multiplying these two parameters and you are printing onto the screen. So here you can see the indentation over here, right? So you are calling this function multiply by passing two arguments to it with values 2 and 8, right? So x will be assigned with 2, y will be assigned with 8, and this print statement will be 2 multiplied by 8. So it will be returning you 16. Fine. So it is print not returning, it is printing as output 16. Then Python function arguments. In Python, you can define a function that takes variable number of arguments. Means any number of arguments. This argument is the value that is passed to the function that is called. In other words, on the calling side, it is the argument. On the function side, it is parameter. So we have already seen that. So let's see the example. Here the function greet has two parameters, right? What are the parameters? Name and message. So definition greet. So two parameters with colon. Then this is your doc string, right? So you are printing something hello. This is the just string, comma, name. It will pick the value from here, right? Then you are putting comma in between, and then message, whatever the message you want to display. So greet, you will be passing two arguments. This is the message you want to display on the screen. This is the name of the uh, name as argument value you have given. So first you can see over here when it is called, this hello will be printed, then this name will be printed, and then this comma will be printed, right? And then the message whatever you have over here, so this message will be displayed, right? So hello Monica, good morning will be displayed. So since you have called this function with two arguments, so it runs smoothly and we do not get any error. So if we call it with a different number of arguments, the interpreter will show an error message, because in the definition you have mentioned that you require two arguments, right? And if you try to uh, call this function either without argument or with only one argument, it will give you error. So here you can see you have tried to call it with only one argument, it has given missing one required positional argument. Then with no argument has been called, missing two required positional arguments. One is name, another is message. So three type of function arguments are there: default arguments, keyword arguments, and arbitrary arguments. Function arguments can have default values in Python. So we are talking about default arguments. So function arguments can have default values in Python. We can provide a default value to an argument by using the assignment operator. So you can see over here that you want to always display good morning, good morning. So here there is a argument, right, with name as message equal to some default value you have displayed over here. So this is your you can see all this is doc string, right? Now print hello comma name. So from here we have taken name, right? And message we are not passing, but we do have the default value for it, right? But you are displaying the message over here, and this good morning default argument will be picked by it. Now here what you are calling greet, and you are just passing the name. So if you are passing the name only and you are not passing the value corresponding to message, it will pick the default value over here. So hello Kate, good morning. So good morning has been picked. And if you can override this default as well by writing your own. So here you have mentioned your own. So you have written hello Bruce, how do you do? So you have passed both the arguments with your own values. And if you are not passing for the second one, it will be picking the default one. So in the previous slide, we have seen in function the parameter name does not have a default value and is required during the call. On the other hand, the parameter message has a default value of good morning, so it is optional during the call. And if the value is provided, it will override the default value. So any number of arguments in a function can have default values. So this is not the case that corresponding to one only, corresponding to one argument you can provide default value. For all the arguments you can provide the default value. That's not an issue. But once we have a default argument, all the arguments to its right must also have default values. This is the condition, important condition. Once you have started defining the default value corresponding to 1, what you will do, all the arguments to its right must also have default values. This means to say that non-default arguments cannot, this is the thumb rule, non-default arguments cannot follow default arguments, right? So if we had defined the function header like this, so first you have defined message with default value and then non-default argument, so it will give you syntax error. Non-default argument follows default argument. So when we call a function with some values, these values get assigned to the arguments according to their position, right? For example, in the above grid, so we can see that because these are the positional, right, according to positions. So this is corresponding to, this will be according to name, right? So this is at first position, this is for name, this is for MSG, right? So we can see it is for first, it is for second. So the brews get assigned to the argument name, and similarly how to message. So Python allows functions to be called using the keyword arguments. So when we call functions in this way, the order of the arguments can be changed. So if keys are there, keywords are there, then there is no issue of the positioning. So how can we do that? So here you can see that key value pairs are mentioned over here. This is key, this is your value, this is key, this is your value. Then you can write this message first and name after that, there will be no issue on that. So this is your out of order, so it will work because key value pair is there. So here it will also work because it is without key and this is with key. So as we can see, we can mix positional arguments with the keyword during the function call, but we must keep in mind that keyword arguments must follow positional arguments. This is important. Having a positional argument after the keyword argument will result in error. You can see over here. So this is syntax error, known keyword arguments after keyword argument. Python arbitrary argument, sometimes we do not know in advance the number of arguments that will be passed into a function. Then Python allows us to handle this kind of situation through function calls with an arbitrary number of arguments, right? How can we do? In the function definition, we use asterisk before the parameter name to denote this kind of argument. So def greet asterisk names, right? So for name in names, print, then you are taking name one by one and you are printing. So you have number of names over here, right? So then it is picking one by one and displaying onto the screen. Here we have called the function with multiple arguments. These arguments get wrapped up. These arguments get wrapped up into a tuple. So this is a tuple, right? This is your tuple, right? Before being passed into the function. Inside the function, we use for loop to retrieve all the argument back. Number of arguments. By default, a function must be called with the correct number of arguments, meaning that if your function expects 2 arguments, you have to call the function with 2 arguments, not more, not less. So here we have seen, if you try to call this function with 1 or 3, you will be in trouble and you will get an error. Then passing by reference and passing by value. All the parameters in the Python language are passed by reference. It means if you change whatever the parameter refers to within a function, the change also reflects back in the calling function. So we have already studied this concept in C or C++ as well. So let's see over here. This is the definition of the function with the change me, and you are providing some argument over here. So here my list dot append. So you are appending with this, you are printing my list and you are returning. Then if you are initializing my list with this, then you are passing the my list to it. You are trying to print it. So if you try to print the values inside the function, right, it is 10, 20, 30, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So you are appending it. Outside again it will be 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So here we are maintaining reference of the past object. Reference, let me explain you about this. Suppose this is the memory location, right, or memory reference, right? And here you are basically directly uh, changing the value at the memory level. So it means the updation will be reflected everywhere. Fine. So we will be understanding this concept later. Here we are calling by reference and calling by value. So calling by reference, there is another example where argument is passed by reference and the reference is being overwritten inside the called function. So here this is how we have declared my list 10, 20, 30. So you have passed base when you are calling it, you are basically passing 10, 20, 30 this list, right? When you are going inside it, right? So you are uh, changing the list to 1, 2, 3, 4. So now you are trying to print my list. So it will be displaying 1, 2, 3, 4 when you are printing inside, right, inside the function. But when you are coming outside, it will be 10, 20, 30. So the parameter my list is local to the function change me. So this is, see, this is local. My list is local to function, but this my list, this is global. So here we can see, if you have seen, you recall, we had used the keyword global if you want to reflect the changes outside Adval. So here we have not used global, so the changes are only local and not global. So doc strings. So doc strings means we have already seen that whatever the information you want to display corresponding to the function, it will be. So doc strings are declared using triple quotes just below the class or method or function declaration. So all the functions should have, I am not saying must have, but should have, it is advisable. How can you access this? You can, basically this is a help, right? The doc strings can be accessed by using underscore double underscore doc double underscore method for of the object, or using the help function. Here we can see, so this is the doc string, right? We have used triple quotes, triple quote end, and inside you are writing whatever, right? So print using then this statement, then colon, double quotes, right? So this is the just message you want to display onto the screen. Then this is the name of the function, my function, right? So you have used my function, then doc dot and then doc. So what it will do, it will display the demonstrates triple double quotes doc strings and docs nothing really. So it will be displaying onto the screen. So it has displayed. Then using help, how can you do? help my function, again it will be picking this and it is displaying it. That is return statement. The return statement is used to exit a function and go back to the place where it was called. A function can return multiple types of values. A function can have multiple return statements. So when any of them is executed, the function terminates. We can use the return statement inside a function body we have already seen. So return, then expression list. So here this is the syntax for return. This statement can contain an expression that gets evaluated and the value is returned. If there is no expression in the return statement, or the return statement itself is not present inside the function, so then the function will not return any object. How the return value works? So you can see over here that the function does not return anything. So here you can see that this function does not have any return statement, so it is not returning anything, right? So when you are printing over here, right, so it is printing the whatever the output is coming, that is 16. Now if you try to print square of 4, basically it is trying to find the return given by it, so it is not returning anything. That's why it has displayed none onto the screen. So you are using print, inside you are calling the function, it will return you whatever is returned by the return statement. So it is not returning anything, so it is displaying none onto the screen as the result of the return statement. So here you are writing return instead of print. So here if you try to print it, it is writing this, the value corresponding to this, that is 16. Here you have used return statement rather than print, right? So here again this is the same thing. What we can do, square x return x multiplied by x, so square. So what you are doing, you are not calling with this, right? Then multiple return statements can be there depending upon the condition, right? So here you have a condition over here, and depending upon that it is returning you something, right? So whatever the value, so if you are giving 2, it is positive, right? So it is returning you num. If it is not positive, so whatever it is displaying the absolute of that, right? So multiple return statements can be there, right? So this is again, you can use the tuple as well for returning. So here you can use tuple over here for returning. Return, you are returning tuple, right? So multiple values can be returned without comma as well, parentheses also. You can result, you can return the list as well. So here you can see that list has been returned over here as a result of calling the function. You are appending the values in the list one by one, and finally you are returning the list. You can return the dictionary as well. So here you are returning the dictionary, you are forming the dictionary as the return statement. So you can use yield instead of return in Python. The yield statement suspends function's execution and sends a value back to the caller, but retains enough state to enable the function to resume where it is left off. When resumed, the function continues the execution immediately after the last yield run. This allows its code to produce a series of values over time. If the body of the def contains yield, yeah, so here you can see, so if the body of the def contains yield, this function automatically becomes a generator function. So return sends a specified value back to its caller, whereas yield can produce a sequence of values. So when should we use? We should use yield when we want to iterate our sequence, but don't want to store the entire sequence in memory. So then you will be using the yield. So simple program to demonstrate working of yield. So a generator function, because now this function becomes generator. So generator function that yields 1 for the first time, 2 for the second time, and 3 for the third time. So def simple generator function with no parameters, yield 1, yield 2, yield 3. Basically this is the replacement of return, right? It is the replacement of return, right? So here we will see when you are calling this function, right, for value in simple generator fun print value. So it is first it is calling and it is returning us 1. Next time it is being called. Now as it has left over here, it will go to this point and give this 2 as output. Now next time it is called, it will it was suspended, it was returned back from here, so now it will give return. So multiple sequence of values has been returned one by one when they are called in sequence. So driver code to check above generator function. Fine. So this is all about all functions. So we will be doing the recursion in your next lecture. I hope you are able to understand about the functions in depth. So I request you to please do the programming, do the implementation so that you are able to understand the concept of functions in a better way. Thank you.